Hey everyone, Jack here, TalkNorwichCity. Welcome back to another video. It's been a really difficult few weeks for Norwich City, and here today to try and reflect on those weeks and the games that we've witnessed most recently, and to try and look forward and see what's on the horizon for this Johannes Hoff Thorup side. Look, we were getting very excited as Norwich fans, both here on the channel and I think wider than the channel. A few weeks ago, the wins against Coventry and Hull and Derby and Watford, and it felt like there was a real feel-good factor. It was a new era. Ben Napper, Johannes Hoff Thorup, some new players, Borja Sainz playing brilliantly, linking up lovely with Josh Sargent, Callum Doyle and Jose Cordoba really partnering well at the back. Marcelino Nunes starting to flourish in the middle of the park. Brilliant additions in Emi Marcondes and Anis Ben Slimani. It felt like everything that we touched was turning to gold. And that was exciting. We've had a period of Dean Smith and David Wagner. And even the last promotion campaign under Daniel Farke was behind closed doors. And then we finally returned and we got pumped in the Premier League. It's been I wouldn't say difficult, but a challenging few years as a Norwich fan. We've had to really kind of strap ourselves in and fight things, I think. And it finally felt like we turned the corner, and we have turned the corner. I still do genuinely believe that, but the last few weeks has been incredibly difficult. Ever since the last international break, really, we have had a pile up of injuries, and it's the worst in the division by far. I think at last count we've got 9 players out, probably 5 of those are starting players, and when that all comes together, plus the suspension to Kenny McLean, your captain, at once, you're going to be up against it. The performance on Saturday against Cardiff for the most part was okay, I would say good in periods, and we were undone by 7 minutes of carnage at the end of that game. That felt like it was a real hammer blow, because if we'd have won that, it stops the rot, you get back on track, and yes, you might still lose to Sheffield Wednesday, and you might still lose to Bristol City this weekend, but it put a little bit of a plaster on a gaping wound, and that would have been nice. Actually, we lost that, and now we've gone to Hillsborough on Tuesday night, and we've lost that. And suddenly, I think it's no wins in 6 now, kind of sliding down the table. It feels like we just need to limp over the finish line to this next international break and try and get some bodies back. Let's look at the Tuesday game against Sheffield Wednesday. It was 2-0 to Sheffield Wednesday, and actually Norwich never really landed a blow on the hosts at all. But I think there's huge context that needs to be applied around this. And let's look at the starting 11 of the Norwich team. George Long in goal. We will touch on him later, but he wouldn't be starting if Angus Gunn was fit. You've then got Callum Doyle, Jose Cordoba, Shane Duffy and Kellen Fisher. Now, granted, that probably is your starting back line. I'm still not convinced that Callum Doyle is a left back. I think he's a brilliant centre back. I just don't love, and maybe it's a system thing, how high he gets up the pitch in left back, and he's not really got cover through Borja Sainz, who's in front of him, which just leaves huge areas in behind, and we kind of saw part of that for the first goal last night. It's the midfield that has absolutely killed us in the last few weeks. Now, the starting midfield for the game against Sheffield Wednesday was Marcondes, Sorensen and Schwartau. Now, in Marcondes and Schwartau, I think you've got 2 decent players. I've been impressed with Schwartau considering his age. For a lot of his performances, I didn't think he was great on Tuesday night. I think for a free transfer, Marcondes is a really shrewd addition, but probably shouldn't be starting football matches at this stage, and certainly wouldn't be if we had a fully fit team. And to be brutally honest, I don't think Jacob Sorensen is good enough for this team, and I don't think he has been for some time. So that's the midfield. It would usually probably be Nunes, McLean and Anis Ben Slimani, all out, either injured or suspended. Your front 3 has also taken a hit because Josh Sargent will be out for a couple of months. That takes you into the new year. He's going to be missing a lot of football. Borja Sainz obviously had a brilliant season so far, but has had to take a lot of the workload on himself, and that's not sustainable. Ante Cianat, who's a big money summer transfer, starts through the middle, and then it's Cade Gordon on the right hand side. Now it was public knowledge that Cade Gordon wasn't first choice for Norwich City. It was that of Ben Doak, who we saw play for Middlesbrough at Carrow Road a couple of weeks ago and was absolutely fantastic. Cade Gordon has had flashes of goodness, but again, he's very young. He's 20 years old. This is kind of his real first taste of Championship football, thrown in at the deep end and kind of went missing on Tuesday night. So that is a side, much changed. You've probably got, well, let's go through it. Ante Sienat, still not proven. Cade Gordon, probably not up to it at the moment. Oscar Schwartau, still very young. Sorensen, I don't think is good enough. Emi Marcondes, probably didn't expect to be starting. In Kellen Fisher, you've got a 20-year-old who, granted, has been starting for Norwich City, but still is taking on a lot of work very early on in this season. And then you've got your goalkeeper in George Long, who has been, well, the worst goalkeeper in the division for the last 3-4 weeks. So that's the context around this. And I think you look at the Norwich results in recent weeks: a 2-0 defeat to Sheffield Wednesday, a 2-1 defeat to Cardiff, and then there were 3 draws before that. 1-1 against Stoke, 2-2 against Preston, and 3-3 against Middlesbrough. Now, actually, for Stoke, arguably a George Long error. Preston, a George Long error in there. And against Borough, a George Long error. So a lot of the recent games, actually, I don't think have been necessarily poor performances. They've been individual errors. Now, some of those you can kind of you can sympathise with. Some of them are just absolutely unforgivable, and you can decide which are which. But that's the context around this. And the reason I'm providing that context is because I think there's been slight bedwetting when it comes to particularly that Cardiff game. Lots of people saying, oh, Johannes went far too defensive, far too early. And look, potentially that is a reason for us not winning that game. But I think they were justified decisions. And actually against Sheffield Wednesday, that was the most, that was the worst performance of the lot. I thought we looked tired. I thought actually system-wise there was patterns of play in there, but never really got going. A distinct lack of quality on the ball, and really the Sheffield Wednesday game, I think the where we came completely undone in that game is that we just had nothing off the bench. We made 2 substitutions. Forson Amankwa came on and looked poor, and Christian Fasnacht came on, who has barely played football for the last few months. Now, that was a side very much fatigued. You could tell that they were struggling. Sorensen played 90 minutes. Marcondes played 90 minutes. Both of those haven't played a huge amount of football this season. And you've got, Doyle, Cordoba, Duffy, all have had really heavy workloads in recent weeks, Fisher included. So this is a really difficult period for Norwich. We knew it was going to be difficult. Some of this stuff is bad luck. Some is potentially not managing workloads correctly, but equally you're not going to drop Josh Sargent, are you? And some is just stupidity and Kenny McLean. Those things happen. So you've got different reasons for these absentees. I think if you look at this from a long-term perspective, maybe some of these things were avoidable in the summer. Could we have signed another striker? Norwich will argue, well, they didn't expect both Josh Sargent and Ashley Barnes to be injured at the same time, but we have been in this situation before. That puts a lot of pressure on Ante Sienat, who's still coming to terms with English football. The goalkeeping issue in George Long will come up lots. Look, I'm not going to sit here, I don't know what I'm doing anymore, and really pile into George Long. I think statistically is quite literally been the worst goalkeeper in the division since he's come in. This isn't an anomaly. He was poor when he came in for Angus Gunn last season. Lots will question whether that contract decision was the correct one. I think there was an option to bring John Ruddy back to the club that Norwich City declined over the summer. So there were options for that second choice goalkeeper role, and Norwich opted for George Long. Potentially a mistake now with hindsight. And some things you just simply can't factor for. Anis Ben Slimane injury, Marcelino Nunes injury, etc., etc. This is a thin squad. We knew that coming into this season, and there are benefits to that. It means that it's not as difficult to keep team cohesion and morale high because those players that are starting will get regular game time. It means there is a more cohesive element to that side. But this is the Championship. 46 games, particularly around this period in the winter. Tuesday, Saturday. That's not going away. Norwich now just need to limp into this international break and try and get some of these players back. Slimane I'm looking at. Nunez I'm looking at. We know that we've got Josh Sargent out for a long while. Angus Gunn coming back. 3 of those 9 players, I think that is the only, that will make a huge difference. And then you can start to build. This was always going to be a transition season. I still believe that there's hope of playoffs this season. I think even the football that we've played against Cardiff and Sheffield Wednesday, there were signs of this system being implemented. Johannes Hoff Thorup will have learned a lot about his second string players in this period, and I think we'll now have the knowledge and the understanding to go into January alongside Ben Napper. And if the Atanasios is taking this seriously, they will have to dig into the war chest and go to town with some signings, because it is quite clear that this squad isn't deep enough, / when you do kind of scratch around in the substitutions bench, there's probably not enough quality. There is still hope. There is absolutely hope. We just need to dig in, take some more hits, and hopefully don't get knocked out in this period. You've got Onel Hernandez, Marcelino Nunez, Liam Gibbs, Ashley Barnes, Anis Ben Slimane, Angus Gunn and Kenny McLean all returning within probably the next 3 weeks. Suddenly, the mood around the place and everything just lifts a little bit. The defeat to Sheffield Wednesday was incredibly disappointing. The defeat to Cardiff, again, was disappointing, but it was disappointing for different reasons. The 3 draws before that, actually, there were some real positives in that. I thought we were good for large parts against Middlesbrough. We were the better side for 70 minutes against Preston. And if it wasn't for a goalkeeping error, we beat Stoke. That's the context. That's me trying to say to you, and hopefully you agree with me, that this project is still very much moving in the right direction. And yes, we might have hit a bit of a stumbling block, but it's very reminiscent actually to that first Daniel Farke season when he was trying to learn his squad, he was trying to bring in new players, he was trying to implement a philosophy. There is so many moving parts that you are trying to deal with. And the perfect storm, or the imperfect storm, has happened at this stage for Johannes Hoff Thorup. So many players out injured, so many of his senior players are out, and you're having to rely on players that you probably don't want to be relying on. That's incredibly tough. That's where I am at the moment. I'm not necessarily concerned. Am I disappointed with recent results? Of course I am. I want to see Norwich City winning football matches, but I'm not concerned bigger picture. But we do need these players back sooner rather than later. Let me know what you think of it all. It's been a really challenging few weeks for Norwich, and hopefully things will start to turn around soon. We've got Bristol City on Saturday, and then we head into an international break, and it's 14 days before the game away to West Brom. So a little bit of time for rest and recovery, and hopefully that works. Thanks very much for watching, everyone. I'll see you all again very soon. Bye-bye.